Hello friends, I'm Paige, an educator and leader in the cybersecurity space with the aim to help people get cyber. And you're listening to Trusted Verified, the podcast where industry professionals share their experience, insights, and advice to help students navigate their career journeys. Here, we go beyond the resume, cut through the noise, and give you actionable guidance you can trust and verify. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to follow or subscribe and let me know your thoughts on socials. I love hearing from you. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Trusted Verified podcast. To get started today, I am joined here with Susana Pentland, who I'm fortunate enough to work with. Susana, would you like to introduce yourself and just explain a little bit about what you do?
Hi, and thank you very much for that warm welcome, Paige. So I am a consultant with Cyber CX, and I'm part of the Cyber Capability Education and Training practice. So what I do there is I get the unique opportunity to sit in on exercises with at board level, executive and operations, which is really, really interesting. I also get the opportunity to host some panel talks with the Academy. There's some brilliant initiatives happening there. There's a Cyber 50/50 program, which is a great opportunity for women that perhaps are looking to get into cyber but don't know a pathway to get in there yet. So that's a really good opportunity for anyone that's listening and keen to learn more about that. But also part of that, I'm also a in-house cyber awareness and training lead for one of our large organisations, Australian company. So that's what I do.
I really, really love and respect your focus on getting women in cybersecurity because one thing that I've spoken to with students and other guests that I've had is even to this day, unfortunately, our IT cybersecurity degrees are seeing quite a low ratio of men to women. So where I feel, based on my experience in the industry at the moment, seeing the amount of women that are in the industry is so amazing, especially with initiatives, that Cyber CX do, initiatives with the AWSN and WSIS as well. So being able to see those initiatives sort of push that a little bit further. And I really hope that, in conjunction with this podcast and other things that you get involved with, Susana, that we will see that sort of dial shift a little bit would be really phenomenal. I wanted to talk about sort of how you got into cyber and your career path thus far. There are just so many different pathways that are non-linear in that way. Mm-hmm. Now, based off of my research into your background, you started your career in enterprise sales and account management roles. What sparked this transition into cybersecurity for you?
Wow. So honestly, that's a really good question. So in terms of sparking, it wasn't like a light bulb moment. I didn't always sort of know or knew that I was going to land into cyber. It was more like a slow burn kind of thing. But yeah, I spent years in enterprise sales, account management, and even did some time in like operations management as well. But what I loved most was working with people and understanding what sort of motivates them, their worries, what drives behaviour. And I think having that curiosity about human behaviours actually is the heart of cybersecurity in a way. So the move wasn't so much of a leap away from what I kind of knew, but more like a lean into. And if I was also I guess I've also been drawn to varying different problems that sat right at the intersection of technology and people. And the more I learned about cyber, the more I realised that, this field desperately needs more people that can translate the complex concepts and simplify that complexity to an audience that will actually land, so that will actually resonate for them. So yeah, so the move eventually was intentional, and yeah, but it sort of came about in a way that I guess I was paying attention to what I was naturally curious about. Sure, I did a bachelor's in computer information science, and then I did a number of all these different roles in between. Again, dealing with like the human factor, that dealing with people. And when I did my postgraduate, that's when I think the spark for me happened then. I realized, wow, this is really interesting. And, if there were more people out there that could actually translate some of that into a language that will land with other different audiences, I think, yeah, for me, that was what the spark was.
I think that's such an interesting point as well, because we see a lot of these newcomers in the industry are very, very smart and very technical, and there is that need for those personable skills there, especially in the role that you're doing, where you are communicating these sort of technical these situations that start very technical but eventually need to lead into sort of business impact and risk, which takes a very unique skill set to do. When I started, I was in marketing in the tech industry as well. So yeah, I too learnt the importance of understanding, what drives decisions and what drives behaviour. Yeah, so I definitely think that is something that is very missing these days, and I couldn't push for developing those soft skills enough, especially for those who are coming into cyber in 2026. I wanted to touch on your experiences in these, both the tertiary and non-tertiary spaces, particularly with the Cyber CX Academy, because you entered the Cyber CX Academy after you did some studies at UNSW, and you didn't have that solid cyber background. I want to sort of understand what that transition was, going from tertiary to something like the Cyber CX Academy. What was that transition like for you?
The transition was at the time, it was actually heightened with a lot of emotion, a lot of excitement, and but also there was a small element of anxiety. So I won't sugarcoat it. It was exhilarating. I think it was more. Well, I was very excited that I get to work with such an amazing company, and two, there was a little bit nervous around, I guess what I thought, was the expectations, and probably a little bit of like imposter syndrome as well. And there's a phrase that Bones, our academy facilitator at the time, used that described it perfectly. It's like drinking from the fire hose. I'm not sure if you've heard of that term already, Paige.
Yeah,
and that's exactly
yeah.
what it felt like. So the transition was really, really it was a positive experience for me. And you're right, with tertiary education, I find, well, from my observations, I don't know if that was for you as well, Paige, the learnings there, while they were great, you learn the fundamentals of everything, the methodologies, and it can quite often take some time for like curriculums and syllabuses to be updated. So while it's intrinsically really, really important to have those kind of learnings, you can't overlook the learning of real world scenarios as well. So, for example, with the academy being so agile and in the thick of like real world
Yeah,
scenarios, like on the front line, so to speak,
absolutely.
there's absolutely a lot of value in that. And while I thought perhaps, I'm going to know it all, no, it was not the case. you know, it helped me a little bit in terms of some of the basic, foundational understandings. But in terms of some of the other concepts, there was so much more to learn, and the academy did it in such a way that it was relevant, and there was accuracy, because it was with the real world. I don't know, the latest trends and the latest emerging situations, whereas sometimes with some of the case studies or some of the examples that were perhaps provided with tertiary or in my master's, it was somewhat, I guess, lagging, if that kind of makes sense. So while there's, different learnings on both approaches, it's probably not so much like a one versus the other. They're both, are quite complementary and quite necessary in the space. But so I hope that answers the question.
No, I definitely I agree wholeheartedly with that as well. When I was doing my university studies in my Bachelor of Cybersecurity, we were, I want to say, about 3 to 4 years out of date. And that being said, obviously, understanding those foundations is incredibly important to cybersecurity. Your mathematics and data structures, algorithms, and malware analysis and all these things are really great foundational subjects. But they're, when we're referencing or using tools and VMs that are 4 years old, or referencing case studies, like Stuxnet, which is incredible, well, dated at 2026, you would say, having something as flexible as the academy seems to be a really good way to keep up to date with those trends, especially with like Mythos out now, and sort of analyzing the impact of that. And you can just sort of, punch that in straight away, instead of having to go through that, verification and approval process of standard tertiary spaces. So it's really good from my interactions with it. And I'm glad that it is so flexible, because it just allows the students to just get on the front foot as quick as possible, in comparison to something like tertiary education.
And with relevance as well to today's, ever-changing landscape.
Oh, all the time. Like, it reminds me of our sort of AI baseline about Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yes.
And just how much we've progressed since that. Since I think 2023, was when that all started, and now it's just. I would have believed that he is actually eating spaghetti at this point.
It's crazy how much has evolved, isn't it? It's I think 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I saw I guess one of the latest releases of live AI filtering.
Yep.
It used to be you just upload one picture and some audio to be able to generate something.
Yeah.
Now you can do it live. It's just wow, and it's just granular accuracy. It's incredible how much
so impressive
it's evolved in that short time since that the early days of Will Smith eating spaghetti.
I know. Thank you, Will Smith, for being our test subject. I wanted to pivot a little bit to sort of what you're doing at the moment. I know that you're very passionate about making cybersecurity accessible, especially for our non-technical and underrepresented communities here in the industry. How has this sort of underlying motivation shaped the way that you design and deliver these awareness programs?
It's shaped everything because it has to. And I anchor every program in one simple belief that security awareness only works when people actually care.
Yep.
And people care when they feel seen, not spoken at. So that's not just a design principle for me. It's like a whole philosophy. So when I'm building a program or preparing a talk, whether it's for an organization, a school of teenage girls, or a room of seniors navigating smartphones for the first time, perhaps, I don't just start with, the alarm and the threat landscape. I start with seeing the person or understanding, the audience. And so I would ask, what would make this person feel safer tomorrow, and what actually matters to them today. So if I really think about it, I think about what would happen, like what's the one thing that they could take home today and tell the family, for example, tonight straight away. But the truth is, for non-technical audiences, the greatest gift that you can actually give them is not just that long list of like threats, the alarm, about the threat landscape. It's to give them confidence. So the confidence is what's going to help them make better choices and be a bit more resilient and a whole lot safer online. So I think that's absolutely worth protecting.
Yeah.
So and that's the kind of shift that I'm always trying to chase in the room. And when it happens, like when you see someone's face and they've got that sort of like aha moment, or maybe their face has changed from like the overwhelm to finally getting it.
Yeah.
That's kind of everything, and that's sort of, well, for me, that's why I do the work. That's why I love doing the work.
And I think reframing it in that way where, we're working together to build your habits, then that gives them the confidence that they can, take those insights, home and have those dinner table conversations.
Yeah.
And then that then, spreads even further than just the room that you presented this campaign in, which, I think, those sorts of moments are what make me feel so proud to do what I do. When you have those reactions and you see that in your audience, it's like, oh, this is everything. This is why I do anything.
It's rewarding. It's so rewarding, and it gives it meaning, and it makes it the whole work purposeful as well. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about something that I just think is so impressive and amazing. You have authored a book called Cybersecurity for All Kids, which for those who are listening, it essentially turns cyber safety into an engaging and accessible guide for young people, which you mentioned before that you have given talks to high school students. So obviously bringing those secure habits as early as possible is incredibly important to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. What inspired you to write this book, and what impact do you hope that has on how children and families as well approach online safety?
Yeah, a really great question. And I think it stemmed from, I guess, a need or a gap that I found. So taking a few steps back, I have a little boy now, and I really wanted to have something that would speak to kids with my boy in mind, that was in a way that's kind of warm, honest, but genuinely useful. And I really found that was missing when I was, searching for something like that as well. So I wanted to be not so much fear-driven or patronizing, but written for kids and with a clear message that will hopefully land as well.
Yeah.
So, because I mean, the reality is we're seeing children online using devices before they can even tie their shoes. Yeah. And the adults in their lives, like the parents, the educators, the grandparents as well, or carers, quite often they're also navigating the same uncertainty that these kids are. And tools are changing. As I mentioned before, like the landscape is changing, the online environment is changing all the time. So we're often trying to play a little bit of catch up, and I am still seeing there's a lot of more work that needs to be done in being able to provide accessible resources and materials for these communities, especially the children and school children. So anyway, nobody knows quite where to start at times, and I think we are getting better because organisations such as the eSafety Commission and a bunch of others that aren't coming to my mind at the moment, but there's some really great other resources that are stepping up now with some brilliant handouts and initiatives and programs for kids. So we are starting to see that come out now, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to create something that gave families permission to, start that conversation, like you mentioned before, having that conversation at the kitchen table, in the car, in the playground, on the way to school, not just in that classroom or curriculum setup. So the impact, I hope, for is actually quite simple, that one family picks it up and has that real conversation about online safety without it feeling awkward or overwhelming, because that ripple effect matters. So safe communities start with simple conversations, and the earlier we start with building that cyber literacy with kids, the cyber awareness and that confidence, the better.
One thing that I always sort of repeat to a lot of people I have conversations with, especially it's more around networking, but it still applies, is one conversation could change everything. And it never underestimate the power of a conversation. And that obviously extends even to having those conversations with your family about how to be safe online. I myself have a 17-year-old sister, and she's grown up with smartphones and had an iPad, and it's just very, very important, even at the bare minimum, to just have that chat, have that conversation, because that's better than doing nothing. And a lot of people don't do anything. And I think it's very important, as have you, because you've obviously put this in place, this book out there where people can have that conversation. It's very important to take those baby steps. And then, if enough of us do that, then it'll just be an avalanche, which is incredibly inspiring, and I can't underestimate the power of a conversation.
100%. Yeah.
I wanted to sort of pivot a little bit and focus a bit more on some advice for students and aspiring professionals that we have listening into the podcast. We've already touched base on cyber threats continuing to evolve what feels like every second at this point, but I wanted to sort of discuss and get your thoughts on what skills and mindsets that you think will become even more important for students to embody in the next few years as these threats are continuing to evolve in front of our eyes.
It's crazy. I mean, if you think about, the evolution of the internet, that took a lifetime, what it felt like a lifetime, but, like maybe like 10 years or 11 years. But in today's environment, we're seeing things evolve so quickly, so much quicker than, than in comparison to like the evolution of the internet, for example. Like AI, nobody really ever heard of like Mythos or ChatGPT even 5 years ago, really. So getting back to your question, I would say that it's more about mindset than skills right now in this environment, because because things are changing and moving so rapidly. I mean, we've got the age of AI and or technology and even like with quantum computing, things are going to be accelerated even faster. So the thing here, if like to hone in on specific skills, I feel like that would be outdated quicker. So my thing would be more about mindset. So number one, adaptability, for the reason I just outlined before. Things are moving so quickly. So to be able to pivot from one thing to another and to continually grow and change and just roll with the punches, so to speak. So adaptability, because it might be the most important thing, like to stay relevant, if that makes sense. So purely for that reason, because as I mentioned before, tools change. They always have, and that will continue to do so. So staying calm under uncertainty and to keep asking good questions, the right questions, even if you don't have like the answers yet, or if there are no answers yet, because the person who will always be relevant and have a place in this industry will always, be able to continue with asking the right questions and being adaptable. The other thing I would highlight is a curiosity. So not just about technology, but about people, systems, behaviours, just curiosity about, well, how do things work? How do things fail? The curiosity is the baseline of every great security professional I've ever met. And it's not something, you can fake. It's something that you can feed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So feed that curiosity. And I think following on from what we mentioned earlier, the skill, the mindset that I would put on top of that list is to be more brave, if you like, around asking the questions and communicating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the ability to take something complex and make it land with a non-technical audience.
Yeah.
I mean, technically brilliant people are fantastic at what they do, and there's absolutely a need for technical people, but at times there can be gaps where technical people are leaving value at the table, if that makes sense, because perhaps their concepts or their ideas aren't landing with the right people because it's not speaking to them in a way that it kind of resonates with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for those that are listening, if you're sitting here today wondering whether your background is enough, whether it's teaching, marketing, or production, as one of our colleagues are in, or nursing, or whatever it is, you've done whatever you've done before. It gives you a place in this industry because the answer is always yes. The skills that make the difference, it's beyond that. It's more about, I guess, your mindset, your adaptability, your curiosity, and your the way in which you communicate.
Yeah. And I definitely think, especially in this industry, it's very important to be on top of, new things that are coming out, but also always asking the why. Like, if you don't understand something, just ask why. Why is it? Even in my day-to-day job, someone might say, "Oh, this is how this works. This is why we made this decision." And I'm like, "Okay, but what factors played into getting to that result?" So I think, having that continuous learning mindset and that adaptability, because you then have to translate these new threats to people who maybe don't understand it in depth, so you need to be the one on top of it, and it's also fascinating at the same time as well, just really getting into the nitty-gritty of how things are changing and why is mythos any different from any AI that we've experienced before, and actually understanding why it's become such a big thing. Continuous learning is just such a great mindset to be in. And I think students really need to take that on as well when they're moving into the industry. I wanted to focus on community is a huge, part of what I do. I'm the treasurer, the Women in Cybersecurity Australia affiliate, and I do believe that communities and finding your people and finding people who represent your group is really important. What are some lesser known communities or programs that you think industry newcomers could tap into for support and growth in their journey?
Yeah, that's really, really important as well. That's a great question. The obvious communities are absolutely worth exploring for sure. But there are a number of other ones that perhaps aren't as big, and like, for example, spoken a couple of times with her tech path, which is a really great organisation for young women, and I think also career changes as well. But yeah, that's a really great one to explore, as the really focused on, I guess, not just cyber, but other pathways into STEM. So your sciences, technology, engineering, and maths. And they've now launched their New South Wales chapter. They've also launched Canberra and Melbourne. They've founded, I think, in Adelaide. Great organisation running behind that. Another one is Her Tech Circle, which I joined before embarking on my journey with CyberCX. And I found that really, really valuable. They're also a national organisation run purely for women of all, backgrounds, categories. Also in STEM, I guess it's they quite often run like different talks, different workshops, and yeah, they're quite an active group. And from the events that they've run, that I've like from my observation, is that it's so valuable, and I've walked away learning so much. There was one, my very first one that I went with them, helped me just redo my LinkedIn profile, and that one was just so valuable. And I think as a job seeker, or as someone that's looking to get into, that was before I even applied for the CyberSex Academy program. It was such a valuable group or network of individuals that and they're very passionate. The ladies behind that are very passionate what they do, and you can see it just filters through with all of the programs, all of the initiatives that they run, and of course we've got other organisations that you just mentioned before, AWSN and Women in Cyber. There's I can't think of any others that come to mind. I mean, there's a couple of other smaller groups that I've just recently joined, and one that's just sort of launched last month. We had our first sort of meetup early April, I think it was. So, and again, it was just that was born out of a need for women to be able to get together and in a safe space. Because quite often I think the feedback from some of the other I guess members that were there was that they'd go to these tech meetups or the affiliate groups and stuff like that, and quite often they felt not so much misogynized, or what's the word, but it wasn't, they didn't feel it was their safe space. They couldn't just go there and be themselves as women, without having
maybe like judgy eyes
a
around.
very judgy eyes. And sometimes not that I'm sure I'm not saying that there was any malicious intent behind some of those comments that these women experienced at these all gender meetups, but a couple of them felt sometimes it can be a bit like a boys' club, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's all about getting on the fizzies and just getting blotto and whatever, without having that connection and real conversations and talking about ideas and sharing and exchanging knowledge and just talking about like real stuff that we've experienced, or might be able to impart some knowledge to to help lift others up, which was the premise behind this other smaller group that I just joined. But yeah, so I guess my point that I would like to also share with listeners that are listening in is just reach out to if you meet someone at one of those communities, ask them, are there any other networking groups or any other programs that you're part of, or Yeah, and also looking, like for example, LinkedIn, they have a lot of you know, different communities that they show on there. So that could be a good resource to look at as well.
And it's one thing that I have been really appreciative of when moving into cyber is everyone is more than happy to share knowledge, like especially in these groups that I'm involved in and that you're involved in. Everyone wants to share knowledge. Everyone wants to help out
Yeah.
because we all have that shared experience being one of 10 people in a room and you're the only woman. So everyone is so willing to share their experiences and their ideas to help you grow and feel supported in the community, which I've been in a couple of different industries, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's just something so so amazing about the cyber community, especially in those programs that just make you feel so inspired when you leave every event. You're like, wow, I could get used to this.
That's good.
Speaking on career growth, especially because you're doing a lot of project management on these engagements, you're going on panels and you're speaking to all these different groups of people. What's one thing that you know now about career growth or building confidence that you wish that you had known earlier in your career or just in your job journey in general?
And I love this question. Um, One thing that I wish I'd known earlier in my career is like just show up as yourself, like your true self, not the version you think that the room expects you to be.
Mm.
Um, so showing up as your true self matters more than almost anything else for me now. So for a long time, like I wore a mask. I show up wearing this mask, trying to fit a mold, like trying
Mm-hmm.
to be what I thought was expected of me, trying to fit this stereotype or trying to, for example, at some previous work organizations I used to work with, it was very much a boys, again, being a male
Yeah.
dominated
Yeah.
industry. So, trying to fit in, trying to be one of the boys and, you know, behave and act and, be in a different kind of manner. So trying to perform into the version that I thought that this, was going to help me fit in better.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets exhausting, maintaining a mask, trying to be
Yeah.
someone that you're not, right? It's not sustainable. And the costs was more than what I actually realized. So
Mm.
for years, I thought it was, my problem was about work-life balance. And if I could just get that right, everything else would follow suit. But what I needed was alignment. And I think we touched on this the other day, actually, Paige. Um, when the work you're doing connects with who you are
Mm.
and what you value, uh, when it's purposeful, when it resonates, the hard days feel different.
Yeah.
Like they're still hard, but they have meaning,
Mm.
and that changes everything. You have the the drive. It feels effortless. It doesn't really feel like work.
No, it's you put your
When you
all into it, and then the result, you're
exactly.
like, I couldn't be more proud of that, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to send that off.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, I've got to do this XYZ, it's like amazing. I can't wait to do XYZ.
Yeah.
It's so yeah, it's funny that I just reflected on it this morning that yeah, we spoke about that the other
We
day.
did. Yeah.
And the other thing I wish someone had told me earlier is like the difference between your ego self and like your best self,
Mm.
because they're not the same. So your ego self wants to look competent, protect its reputation and avoid vulnerability, chase perfection. And in doing all of that, it quietly robs you of growth opportunities.
Yeah.
Whereas your best self steps into that heart thing. it steps into that vulnerability. It takes that risk, and it makes you ask those questions, like admit, yeah, hey, there's a gap. I don't know that thing. I'm going to learn that thing. And that's where the real growth happens. Just last year, there was, I guess, a deliverable or some work that I got put on to doing. And I really had to sit with that thought, like, because I was anxious, I was nervous, and I guess in a way I was really, hard on myself. Like, what if I fail? What if people, the whole imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah.
But if I was to draw on that example, though, it's, that absolutely was my ego self talking, because if I allowed my ego self to drive my behavior, I would have been like pushing back. No, I can't do that. That's not, because of the fear of failing, the fear of, showing that I'm vulnerable, the fear of not looking competent. But instead, my best self took the reins, stepped into that vulnerability, stepped into the anxiety, and stepped into the gaps. Oh, wait a minute, I don't know XYZ. So, but now, I'm doing that thing that I once thought, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that thing faster than. And now I'm doing it. So it's that, to me, I wish I'd learned earlier to just to pause and notice, which one of myself is driving my decisions, driving my thoughts. Is it my ego self or is it my best self?
Yeah.
Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's you get to choose, and that choice is where everything changes, and that's where the true growth happens as well.
Yeah. And yeah, I was just about to say that as well, is if you sort of live in this, because I think about negativity and how, as humans, we kind of aren't made to process negativity in the level that we do these days. And, when you are in that state of anxiety and sort of that imposter syndrome, I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling like that, I tend to perform worse. And there was a study done about this. I can't off the top of my head remember who the researcher was, but they had two different groups of people. One who they were both doing karaoke, and one group, would sort of have a bit of an inner monologue. I'm not good at singing. I'm really anxious. I'm really nervous. I'm going to perform so badly. And then the second group, had an inner monologue of, this is so fun. I love karaoke. I love singing. I can't wait to perform in front of people. And the latter group ended up performing better in the end. So mindset, positive, negative is super important. And when you become your true self, you accept the parts of you that, are flawed. You accept, that imposter syndrome. I think accepting that that's just going to exist is really important instead of trying to fight it. And once you start doing that, I think that, like you said, that's where the true growth happens. That's where you can just accept who you are wholly and truly and authentically, and then you grow from there. You don't grow from this anxious, facade / ego ball of yourself. Like I very much used to be a facade person as well.
Me too.
And I have grown miles beyond that version of myself just by leaning in to what I love, positive mindset, and just accepting that things are anxious, but you just got to ask questions. You got to want to learn more, and then you don't really feel as anxious afterwards. Like you said, now that you're doing it, you're like, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's because you're absolutely right. Mindset is everything. And, it's, if you flip the switch of, the perception of it, like, as you mentioned, oh my gosh, the anxiety, all the words around, failure and everything else, but flipping it to like, oh wow, I can't wait. This, I'm excited to do X, Y, Z. I get to do X, Y, Z. Like in that case study you just mentioned before, the singers who did the best were the ones that sort of had that
It's a positive
positive start.
reinforcement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
positive perception about it. Yeah.
absolutely. Now, belonging is a
Yes.
very important thing, especially for us women in an industry that is quite male dominated. And I think the term belonging is really important, um, especially in 2026.
Mm.
If someone is unsure about whether they belong in cybersecurity, what would you say to that person?
Mm. Well, the truth is, belonging isn't something that like this industry hands you. It's something that you kind of claim. And for anyone that's listening, I really want you to hear that, um, because the idea that there's a certain type of person who belongs in cybersecurity is one of the most, I guess, damaging myths
Mm,
our industry carries, because I've met brilliant security professionals who came from nursing, law, teaching, marketing like yourself, production like my colleague in New South Wales here, and all the ones in between. So the field is wider and far more human than a stereotype would have people believe. So if you're sitting with doubt right now, if there's a voice telling you that you're not technical enough or you're not experienced enough, um, or you're not the right fit, yeah, I want to offer you a reframe, because the doubt is not evidence that you don't belong. The doubt is evidence that you're paying attention, and paying attention exactly the right instinct for this work. So the people who don't belong in any profession are the ones who never question themselves at all. So your doubt means that you care, and caring, as we touched on before, is genuinely like deeply caring about
mm,
what you're doing, and getting it right is a very good place to start. So ask the question, go to the meetup, send that message, take the course. You don't need to have it all figured out before you take that next step. You just need to take it. So belonging isn't something that this industry hands to you. It's something that like you claim, you
mm-hmm.
sort of squeeze into.
Yeah. And I think as well, defining it how you want to define it. It's not, a strict definition that, okay, I've been in the industry for 5 years now, I've officially
Mm.
won my place. Belonging can be whatever definition you want to place on that, then, so long as you're keeping curious and you're keeping active and asking questions, like that's yeah, all you could.
It's showing up, yeah.
Showing up, exactly. Now, finally, my last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self at the start of your career, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh, if I could go back and say one thing to younger Susanna, uh, and honestly to anyone sitting here listening, or sitting where she once sat, don't wait until you feel ready, because ready is a feeling that usually arrives when you've done that brave thing, not before it, so to speak. So whatever your situation is, maybe you've had this brilliant book idea, but you're just sitting on it until you're ready, or maybe you've had this idea to develop an app, but you're just waiting for the right moment, or you're waiting for something until you're ready. Just go for it. Just don't uh, don't hold yourself back. Just don't wait until you feel ready, because as I'm explained in my example before about that thing that I was assigned to last year, a engagement piece that I was working on, and if the old me would have been, well, maybe I'm not ready for that just yet, but do it anyway, feel
Yeah.
it, wait to be ready, because that will come when you actually do it, do what it is. So just go for it. I never I mean, there was, for example, the book that I published last year, I probably sat on that for a couple of years. But then,
Really?
but
Oh,
then finally,
interesting.
yeah, but then finally, for various different reasons.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
the time, Hudson was, still quite young, and yeah, so I was still trying to navigate work life and
yeah,
trying to find
yeah.
a job and interstate travel. But yeah, so don't feel like, don't wait to be ready. Just go for it, because and also trust the version of you that decided to try.
Mm.
So that's kind of been my piece of advice that I would tell my younger self.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much, Susanna, for joining me on this episode of Trusted Verified. You've brought so many amazing insights, and I can't wait to read all the comments of what everyone has taken away from this one. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Paige. It was really wonderful to have that conversation with you, and yeah, you asked a really nice structured question. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. And for those listening, I will see you on the next episode of the Trusted Verified podcast.